This is always a very tough situation when it happens. I'm someone where my eyes water all the time, especially in the outer corner, anytime I wear any kind of eye makeup, which is why you don't see me with eye makeup very often. So the first thing is that you really have to absorb the tears that are kind of flowing out of the eye wherever they're coming from. So you can do that with a Q-tip, and you just literally hold the Q-tip wherever the eyes are watering. You can do that with a puff. And then as far as the products that you're using to go over the areas where maybe some of the makeup has run off, it has to be waterproof. It also has to be thicker consistency. And I would say sometimes what's best is taking like a waterproof powder foundation and applying it with a triangle puff on the lower section here, just under the eye, and it creates kind of a barrier. The other thing you can do is a thicker, more waterproof concealer, and you can apply that under the eye. But especially if things are not sticking, like in this corner, usually waterproof powder foundation works well. All right, that's everything for our Q&A this week. I'm very excited. I'm like really into this microphone, guys. I really love using this thing. So I wanted to ask you another question. I am confused as to where I should be saving the answers to the Q&A. So let me know if you want me to put them in reels on Instagram. I think putting them in highlights is a bit annoying because you have to really tap through. So if I make reels for each week, I'll do the videos and the written answers in a reel. I also can put that up on YouTube as well. I think shorts is only a minute or something like that. Maybe it's 90 seconds. I don't even know. But I can put them on YouTube, or I can put them on both, because YouTube, I think you can post questions as well in comments. Might be easier for you to get more information from me if you have follow-up questions. I don't know what other people are doing who offer this Q&A service on their social. So if you have any ideas, DM me, or just vote and let me know what's best for you, and I'll do that. How much time do you have for me to talk about this? I think some of the biggest misconceptions about commercial work is that it's easier than other kinds of work and you sit around for a lot of the day. I think people think it's very well paying. I also think, actually, there's one general misconception about our jobs that I think a lot of people believe. I think many people, including people who are trying to be makeup artists, think that clients come to us for a lot of creative input and that our creative input really matters on certain jobs, and for commercial work and other jobs really doesn't matter. Sometimes you just have to show up and do what your client needs you to do. But with commercial work, you have to be on your A game. You have to be very fast. Your fundamentals in terms of your technique have to be 10 out of 10, color theory 10 out of 10. You are going to be applying makeup on everybody from models to actors to just general civilians, because commercials, sometimes there's regular people involved. Days are long, and a lot of commercial clients shoot stills and video, so nowhere to hide with the retouching. So those fundamentals have to be very strong. If this were to happen to me, I would probably remove the makeup on that area of the face. This is not something that you can really salvage, especially if it's happening in different areas across the face. If I see it, it's something that you want to deal with right away, because it's only going to get worse throughout the shoot or throughout the day. So for me, remove, probably use a moisturizer that is heavier, or maybe even a barrier cream, depending on how dry and cracked the skin is, and then apply a foundation over top that is not as drying, not a lot of powder. Really rely more on setting sprays for this skin type. That's what I would do. This really isn't something that you can just apply more stuff over top. It's something that you have to deal with as soon as you see it happening on the skin. This is a great question because it's all about color theory and a multidimensional foundation application. If you need help with either of these two things, click the link in my bio. I have a lot of resources for you there. So when you have a client that's like this, different face, neck, chest, first what you're going to do is match your foundation to this center portion, so face and neck. When you go in and add dimension, which is using a deeper foundation or maybe a bronzer, that type of thing, you're going to look at their chest. However, how do I say this? If their chest is, let's say, 2 or 3 shades darker than their neck and face, the bronzer or foundation shade you're going to use on the perimeter of the face is going to be that same level of darkness. And if they are very red, you want to make sure that area is nice and shimmery to reflect some light to kind of brighten that up. But also what you can do is choose a bronzer that leans more ready in terms of the type of warmth that's there, that exists in that product, whether it's cream or powder. And then you can work that along the outer perimeter of the face and down the neck, and that will kind of... I have been pretty loyal to the Anastasia brow products. For me, on an oilier skin, I really like using the Dip Brow. I usually dilute it with a little bit of Inglot Duraline, and I'll fill in the brows. That's my go-to application method for brows for any skin type, specifically oily, because the pomades are a little bit more resistant to sweat, to oily skin. So I would say Anastasia Dip Brow. So airbrush makeup for me is something that I love. I really love the Temp 2 airbrush system. I was using it a lot during the pandemic. As far as hygiene goes, it's pretty much the most hygienic way that you can apply makeup, I think. However, the cost of it is something that is crazy. And the second part of this question is just about the cost because it is very expensive. So as much as I love the Temp 2 product, it was the shipping fees and all of that were crazy to get here. So I stopped using it. In my opinion, what I can do with a traditional makeup application, because I've been doing that far longer than airbrush, far surpasses what I could do with an airbrush. I have more versatility with a traditional makeup application. So as much as I love it for the hygiene side of things, for cost, not great. And as far as like being a better method of application, not necessarily. So those are my thoughts on airbrush. This is another one that's really hard for me to answer because with mature clients who have dry skin, I've had clients that some of them want a matte finish, some of them want a more glowy finish. So it's going to depend on that. Other times there are clients that don't need hardly any coverage because there's no discoloration on the skin. Like they have beautiful, evenly toned skin. And then some of my other mature clients have a lot of sun damage and you need to cover. So it's kind of hard for me to give you some recommendations because I don't know the type of mature skins that you're normally working with, or maybe you had a mature client kind of trip you up a little bit. But I think the two that I reach for the most are probably Makeup Forever HD, the liquid, not the cream, and then Face Atelier. Of course, can't go wrong with that. Leaves a beautiful finish on the skin. Both are self-setting, so you don't need a lot of powder, which I generally do not like, especially for older skin. So I think those two are the ones that I would recommend. I don't have one favorite. Usually I get asked, I think every week, what's my one favorite foundation or my top favorite blush. I don't have one. I think it's all about versatility. So there's a lot of products that I love for different things. Concealer wise, I think the ones I'm using the most now are self-setting, and I tend to be going away from the more traditional cream concealers like the MAC, especially for under the eye. I use them on the face still, but not so much under the eye. So for under eye right now, I think I am mostly using the Makeup Forever HD and NARS Soft Matte. And I'm trying to think of if there's anything else. But I think those two are pretty much my most used two concealers, probably for the last month or two. With Peach Fuzz, basically, you're just applying your makeup in a downward motion. So instead of that buffing motion, which we tend to do a lot of as makeup artists, it's just using lighter textured products, products that are self-setting that don't need a lot of powder onto the area where there is a lot of peach fuzz. For most people, it's just in this area here. So when you're applying your makeup, you're applying it in a downward motion. And then I find it's best to not use a lot I don't like setting powder just generally, but especially with people that have facial hair or peach fuzz, the heavier the product, the more it sticks. So those really thick coverage or heavy coverage, self-setting, waterproof types of foundations, I like the waterproof and the self-setting, but nothing that's a very thick coverage in those areas because it will just grab onto the hair and it makes the hair very visible. And then when you add powder on top of that, it's even worse. So I would just say light textured, self-setting foundation, downward application motion wherever there's facial